Hello, guys, and welcome back to another edition of the Rudy G Bets Inside the Lines podcast. Little different faces this week. We got Ryan back, no David, but we're welcoming a new guest, Ryan's buddy, John Feltman from Action Network. So, John, good to have you on the show, man, and excited to hear what you have to say.
Hey, boys, good to see you. Rudy, thank you for inviting me on. Ryan, as always, good to see you. I'm glad we've recouped a little bit from our Vegas trip last weekend.
Yeah, Vegas was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. It was a nice, quick trip, but happy to be back. And it was a shame you can't bet on sports out there. That's the thing that John and I, well, not on your phone. That's the thing that John and I struggled with. But I guess we could have went to a sports book and placed a bet. But
do it the old-fashioned way.
The mobile betting out there is confusing. I mean, that was my fourth time out there, but for whatever reason, you have to go to the physical sports book to place your wagers, and then you're able to use your phone once you sign up through that sports book. So it's kind of weird, but I guess it's kind of cool. It's kind of like old-fashioned, going to the window and getting an actual ticket.
Yeah. I when I was there last March, I had to place my UFC bets at, I think it was Caesars, because I was trying to do it on my phone. I was like, shit, I only have like 10 minutes and I can't do it on my phone here. So anyway, but with that, we'll get right into it. Rye, just want to say good job on your best bet last week that you sent in with the Jags -3. Dave's was the Bengals. Unfortunately, they didn't come through. And then mine was the Cowboys for the second time this year, and that was no sweat whatsoever. I figured they'd bounce back pretty nicely. So, college, unfortunately, was a loser with South Alabama. That I don't even want to talk about it. College was not that fun last week. NFL was great at a 6-0 Sunday, but college football was not that fun. My LSU Tigers forgot how to play defense. The best bet was South Alabama. Didn't work out. So we'll see what happens, but here we sit, the fifth episode of the show, and both my football seasons are in the toilet bowl. So, well, with that, we'll get right into our college football week 6 bets. And John, since you're new, we'll start out with you. Anything that you like this week in college football?
Yeah, and sorry, while you were spieling off about your LSU Tigers, I think Ole Miss just scored another touchdown.
That was.
Just to go back on that, if you were someone who didn't take anything in that game, the second that game kicked off, you were like, how did I not place it taken over in this game? Because the scoring was crazy. If you like points, I mean, that game was insane, just back and forth. And obviously Ole Miss was able to have the ball last and score to win. But this week, it's an interesting card, probably not as stacked as last week. But the first game that I looked at right away was the big matchup that everyone's going to be talking about is Texas and Oklahoma. Texas is currently -6.5. And I think I'm going to lay it with Texas here because, not for nothing, Oklahoma, if you look at their schedule, they really haven't played anybody yet. And a couple weeks ago, they narrowly escaped against Cincinnati 20-6. And I'm pretty sure Cincinnati was 1 of 5 when they were inside the Oklahoma 30-yard line and scoring opportunities. So Cincinnati easily could have won that game with Emory Jones, who's been awful all year. And Oklahoma did bounce back last week with a nice win. But Texas, going into the season, I was so high on them. And this is a huge rivalry game for them. And last week, they were kind of you would think they would be a little sleepy against Kansas, but obviously not. They destroyed Kansas 40-14. And I just think this team is top to bottoms way better than Oklahoma. I think 6.5 is a gift here. So I definitely like Texas with -6.5.
Yeah, I was actually on Cincinnati against Oklahoma, and I got it by the hook. 14.5.
I think I was.
It was watching Emory Jones try to play football was horrendous. I mean, I think I remember tweeting about it. It was just like a calamity of errors. He has not gotten any better since his days at Florida, clearly. And I know Oklahoma's defense has gotten a lot better. Like, they finally got the guys that Brett Venables wants in there. I actually went a different way with this game. I actually took Oklahoma with the points, and there's a couple of reasons why. One, I just mentioned Brent Venables. He has his horses now on defense. This defense is looking obviously a ton better than in years past. That was kind of always Oklahoma's problem. The offense could go, tit for tat with anyone in the nation, but the defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. And now it seems like they at least have a competent defense. Also, last year, Texas blew out Oklahoma. They shut them out. I think it was 49-0. So, Oklahoma's going to want to get that back. And the fact that the spread on this game, I think, is under a touchdown here in a neutral field, I think that's kind of telling that maybe Oklahoma sticks around this one. I think Texas is the better team, and they've played a stiffer level of competition. But something is pointing me to the Oklahoma side that Dylan Gabriel and company could at least keep this within that touchdown and a half range. I think Texas ultimately probably squeaks it out, but it wouldn't surprise me if this one turns into a little bit of a track meet and we see, kind of whoever holds the ball last. And I think Dylan Gabriel and company will get theirs against, albeit a good Texas defense, and Quinn Ewers will do the same against a good Oklahoma defense. But in a game like this, especially with the team that got shellacked last year, I want the touchdown. So I'm actually going to go the other way and take Oklahoma in this game.
Yeah, I don't have much to add on that one, but I was looking at the LSU Tigers here. Speaking of,
oh boy, here we go.
I think I'm going to have to lay the points here against Missouri. -5.5. I think Missouri it's time to
come down. It was 6.5. Yeah, it's coming down.
Yeah,
I got a bad number. I actually took LSU yesterday.
Oh,
yeah, it's 5.5.
I don't blame you, but
I mean, Missouri has been impressive, and they obviously had that miracle walk-off winner that we were on a couple weeks ago when we took them +4.5 against Kansas.
That chubby bastard drilled a 61-yarder. That was awesome.
Mevis.
Yeah. So, they escaped Memphis there. They escaped Vanderbilt last week. And I read John's article. I was on Vanderbilt, unfortunately, there. That was the last-minute touchdown to kind of spoil our +14 ticket. But I think it's kind of time to sell on them. LSU's defense has been awful, as we talked about. But I think they figured out this week. And I think they're just the more talented team. I mean, they definitely are. So,
I was gonna say they're definitely the more talented team. But
yeah, it's just a matter of if their defense can hold up. So, I'm gonna take the chance on them, and I'm taking a -5.5.
Yeah, just to comment on that quick. I'm with you here, Ryan, 100%. Like I mentioned, I already took LSU. I have the -6.5. It's now down to 5.5. I think at BetMGM. Yeah, last week, my whole handicap against Missouri was I thought Vanderbilt's offense was good enough to hang in there, and they were. In the fourth quarter, I believe they cut it within the number. They were down 10, I think, with 5 to go. But then their whole defense was gassed the whole day, and Brady Cook went right down the field once again with a couple minutes left, and they ended up getting that backdoor cover. And what's crazy is Vandy didn't even have their starting quarterback. Ken Seals played. I believe he's a fifth-year senior, and Swan was dealing with that elbow contusion or arm strain. I don't know exactly what the injury was. But I was a little impressed with the Missouri offense, considering this was a very sleepy spot, definitely with the look ahead to LSU. And honestly, to be honest, I really think this week they're going to get exposed. I just think they haven't played that level of competition. The only game they've really played anybody is Kansas State, which they did win. But you could argue Kansas State should have deserved to win that game to begin with. I just think LSU, I think they're going to be pissed off after last week. And I think Brian Kelly's going to have the boys ready to roll.
Yeah.
Just for my mental and emotional sanity, stableness, whatever, I'm not gonna bet LSU, but if I wasn't a fan, I would be taking LSU. It just seems like an overreaction. I did not see last week coming. I'll be the first to tell you. I know when LSU potentially is going to drop a game, and Ole Miss didn't really show me anything, especially on offense, that was going to be the case, and they were just going to turn that into a track meet. But this does seem like a spot that people are selling all of their LSU stock, and while their season is over in terms of making the playoff. I think they're just a lot better than Missouri, and they certainly have put it this way, the 5 best players on the field will all be firmly on the LSU side. You have Jaden Daniels, who I don't think is getting enough talk at all. If this team beat Ole Miss, where would he be in the Heisman race? 3? I mean,
definitely up there.
Like the guy's playing phenomenal football. So I have to go agree with the guys and go LSU, but it won't make my card. If anything, I would maybe consider the over. It might be a slight overreaction just because how bad LSU's defense was last year, but maybe LSU team total. I'm not sure, but yeah. Anyway, I agree with the boys on my LSU Tigers, not the Missouri Tigers.
Yeah, just one more thing about this game. I think something to monitor, especially, is LSU is 128th in passing success rate allowed, which out of 150 FBS teams, that's obviously not good at all.
Yeah,
and we knew going into the year the LSU secondary was going to be a problem. And when I was looking at Brady Cook's numbers, just like last week, I was definitely impressed with what I saw. And his numbers, he's averaging 10.2 yards per attempt on passes down the field. So he could definitely be in for a big day against this LSU secondary. I just think LSU has way more firepower. They have way more talent. And I just think at the end of the day, they're going to end up outscoring Missouri by a good amount here.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you're right, because I want LSU to keep going, because they're not done in terms of winning the West. I mean, Alabama we'll talk about, I'm sure, in a little bit. We'll see how that shakes out with A&M. And then, I mean, what that'll bring me right into my next play. And I actually took A&M on the money line plus 120 against Alabama. Everyone thinks that Alabama's back, but if you really look at it, that score was so misleading last week against Mississippi State. And in comparison to LSU, who's still, in my opinion, the best team in the SEC West, or at least, in that discussion still, LSU absolutely throttled Mississippi State. I mean, Mississippi State literally did not move the ball an inch until like 2 minutes left in that game, when I think they ended up getting like 13 points or something. Alabama was the beneficiary of like 4 turnovers, and their offense only put up, I think, 20 points. It was just like, and Mississippi State's a bad team. The difference with Texas A&M is they could finally match Alabama, if not succeed Alabama on the offensive and defensive lines this year. Like Texas A&M, I think, has like a legit NFL quality like starters on the offensive and defensive line this year. And Max Johnson was actually at LSU. I think his first win at LSU, it was Coach O's last year. It was the last game Coach O coached, I believe, for LSU. He actually beat A&M in LSU. Just a fun little tidbit there for you guys, but he's been around, he's capable. So I think A&M actually sneaks this one out. And the fact that they're getting none of the tickets and the line keeps dropping down, I think this one has all the makings for A&M to take down Alabama. This Alabama team is not the Alabama team we've seen in most of the years past. They have a huge deficiency at quarterback. Jalen Milroe could run, but he is nothing in terms of being a pocket passer. And I don't think that's going to fly against a really solid Texas A&M front 7. I don't think he's going to be able to run all over them, which is going to force them to pass. So I think this is where Bama finally meets their maker here and, goes down. So give me A&M on the money line.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you here. I played Texas A&M. Actually, I got a plus 3.5, a pretty
there you go,
plus 3.5, where I actually parlayed them with Ole Miss this weekend just to get the juice down. So I also like them on the money line as well. I just think Alabama. This reminds me of like an old school Alabama team where Saban's all about the defense, and their offense kind of does enough to get them by and win, and they could still win 11 games. Jalen Milroe, like you mentioned, the guy can run for days, right? But when he's been asked to throw in these big time spots, he's fouled. And we saw what he has behind him during that South Florida game where Alabama, I believe, was like a 33-point favorite, and
that was
they were playing
tough.
Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner out there trying to see what they had at quarterback. I don't think they would have done that if they had full confidence in Jalen Milroe. Now, this is going to be a wild environment. You know Jimbo's going to be fired up for this one. And this Texas A&M defense, like you mentioned, is improved from last year. It's really, really good. They only allowed 141 yards to Arkansas last week, which Arkansas, granted, isn't the greatest offense in the SEC, but they have more than enough talent where
they have Jalen Milroe with KJ Jefferson, who's a way better passer.
Right, correct.
And way more experience. So that's like a good comparison.
KJ is an NFL prospect, and just I know Arkansas has had their struggles on offense and injuries in the backfield this year, but regardless, this is just a great spot for Texas A&M. Alabama, like you said, didn't look great last week, and especially just looking at the market, everyone's all over Alabama, like you said, thinking everyone thinks Alabama's back, but to be honest, I don't think they're back. And Max Johnson, like you mentioned, is more than capable. I don't think he's a downgrade at all from Connor Wingman at all. And I just think A&M is going to be fired up here at home, and I definitely think they'll at least cover the spread.
Yeah, I think you guys convinced me to take A&M there. I don't really have an official play or anything on that game, but I think I might tell you guys. The only other college bet I have, I was going to save for the best bets.
Okay.
I'll share. Let me see. One more. I'm taking Louis. Let me just check what the actual line is. Oh, okay. So it looks like there's 5.5. So there's 6. There's 6.5. So the 7's gone. But I played Louisville +7 against Notre Dame here. Ryan and I know we're on Duke last week, and for those of you that watched that game, Duke literally had no business covering that game. That was the most fluky, disgusting way to lose Notre Dame +5.5. If you watch the game, which I'm sure we all did, but I don't even want to talk about it. But I think Notre Dame was fortunate to escape that game. You could argue that they really could have lost that game if it wasn't for some questionable. I think it was like a penalty, a dumb penalty or something on the last drive that kept scramble. They were down to 4th and 18 or something, and they had perfect pass coverage and Sam Hartman, who's not even really that running a running quarterback, scrambles for 18 yards on when everyone's blanketed. It was just there's a lot of things that I just think Duke was really fortunate to get away. So there might be a little sigh of relief there. And now they play a Louisville team who's quietly flying under the radar here at 5-0. And the games that I think Notre Dame struggles is teams that have good defenses. And I think Louisville is one of those teams that can match Notre Dame with the defensive physicality and keep this in a low-scoring game. Because if you look at the 2 games so far, one, they lost to Ohio State, and then just past week with Duke, teams that had a defense that could keep Sam Hartman in the offense under wraps. Those are the games that could go either way. And in a game that I think defense is going to be prominent, I want the team catching the touchdown. So give me Louisville.
Yeah, I totally agree here. I haven't actually taken anything yet. I was trying to see if I can get a bigger number, but I don't think a 7 is coming. I think it's going to stay under 7. I definitely lean Louisville here as well for all the reasons you just mentioned. Duke +5.5 last week was disgusting. I mean,
yeah, that was
quick side tangent. I was texting my buddies watching the game, and it was that 4th down where it was 4th and 17 before Hartman scrambled. I had the all-time jinx. I texted my friends who we're all big college fans, and I said Elko God 7-1 now against the spread at home as an underdog. And then literally the Hartman run happens, and then estimate 2 plays later is running into it was just insane.
Blew the cover. I had a little sprinkle on Duke money line. I think they were plus 200, maybe something like that.
Something
And
like that, yeah.
all they had to do, it wasn't even like Notre Dame was dropping back to pass. They just did a run right up the gut, and like 15 guys missed a tackle, and it blows even the spread. So yeah, that was
Yeah,
that
they
one.
stood down and like, kicked a field goal, but of course that didn't happen.
South Alabama, for as bad as they looked in that first half, if it wasn't for that pick six, they were in that game because they ended up making it a game. But college was not fun. But the good news is NFL was sensational last week, and we'll get right into NFL now. So, Rye, what do you want to start us out with in NFL week number 5?
So I'll start out with an over. It's going to be a public play, but I don't really care. It's Vikings and Chiefs over 53. So, Mahomes didn't have his best game against the Jets, but
to say the least.
Yeah, he didn't look great, but I think he's going to bounce back. Kirk Cousins, likewise, against Carolina, had an off game, but his first 3 games were great. So I expect him to bounce back as well. If you look at the Vikings 2 games against like good teams, the Eagles and Chargers, both those games were shootouts. I think this is going to be similar. Even that game against the Chargers, that's when John and I were in Vegas, and that game we were watching the end of that could have been even more high scoring because the Vikings just blew chances to win that game at the end twice, really.
Yeah.
So the Chiefs' defense has been good to start the year, but they really haven't played anyone. Lions week 1, kind of an extension of the preseason, and the Lions have been they've been good, but I just don't see this staying under 53. I think both offenses are really going to have good games, and it's in Minnesota in the Dome. So, give me over 53.
You
All
can
right,
get
Ryan.
52.5 right now at FanDuel also.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say I really disagree with you there, Ryan. I think both offenses should, have bounce back performances. And I think, obviously, like you said, being indoors in Minnesota is more conducive to an over than maybe outdoors in Kansas City. I don't know what the weather is going to be like, but certainly couldn't hurt. You just hope, Kirk and Madison don't keep turning the ball over. Good God. That game last week against my Panthers was atrocious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kirk Cousins during the day usually is pretty good. So, hopefully he bounces back after last week.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys got? What are you looking at?
John, you want to start us out with something?
Yeah, sure. This is kind of an ugly one, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this, but I'm going to take the Patriots -1 here at home against the Saints after getting absolutely annihilated by the Cowboys, my Dallas Cowboys, by the way. Yeah, this is.
Don't say that in front of Ryan.
Trust me.
We've already hashed it out. I wear my Eagle shirts when I go to John's, and he's got his Cowboy shirts on.
He comes to my apartment with his Eagle stuff. Him and his girlfriend.
Their
Eagle stuff, and I always joke that they're not allowed in if they're wearing Eagle stuff. But
gotta support.
Yeah, of course. No, but this is just a typical bounce back spot for Bill Belichick and the Patriots here. I know Mac Jones looked terrible last week. He couldn't have looked any worse. And nobody in the world is going to be betting the Patriots this week, despite how bad the Saints looked last week. I just think after what happened against the Cowboys and how bad they looked, and they lost a couple of guys on defense, the fact that they still opened as a small favorite at home here is just all the signs telling that I just think the Patriots are going to win this game. Even if Mac Jones doesn't play great, I think all they'll have to do in this game is run the ball. Sorry, my dog. All we have to do is run the ball against this Saints front, which has actually been pretty vulnerable this year. Tampa Bay had a ton of success last week running the ball against the Saints. And I think if New England just relies on Ramondre Stevenson, Zeke Elliott to pound the ball, and as long as Mac Jones doesn't turn the ball over as much as he did last week, I think they're going to come out with the win here. I don't know what the weather's going to be like. And plus, Derek Carr, I have no idea why he was playing last week. He's got that shoulder injury that he's been dealing with.
AC joint thing.
Yeah, so I don't know if Jameis Winston's going to start this game, but regardless, whoever plays here, um, we're going to have a Derek Carr who's not 100% or Jameis Winston who on the road notoriously isn't great. So I just think this is a great bounce back spot for the Patriots, and it's kind of like a hold your nose pick, but I definitely like the Patriots a lot in this spot.
Yeah,
Derek,
someone who
real quick. Derek Carr had 13 completions, I think, to Alvin Kamara for 33 yards,
Which
which
is like
was,
impossible.
yeah,
Alvin Kamara caught 13 balls last week.
I'm
Yeah,
almost
for
positive
33
he did
yards.
for
Holy
Yep.
30
shit.
yards, which the
Yep.
previous record for the lowest amount of yards with 13 catches was 78. So Derek Carr obviously has issues throwing the ball. He's just dumping everything off, checking it
Yeah.
everything down.
Majority, looking at like some of the highlights from that game, majority of his pass attempts were at the line of scrimmage. Like he could
Yeah.
not throw the ball like down the field. So I don't know why he even started the game in the first place. That just shows you how much like lack of confidence they have in Jameis. If they're playing Derek Carr, who's like definitely not 100%.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead there,
Yeah, I didn't have much of an opinion on this game, but I'll definitely be rooting for New England just because I can't stand the fucking Saints. They're my least favorite team. So go Pats and hope you get a winner there, John. Um, but one I like a lot, and you were talking about hold your nose. Wow, this one is probably worse. I like the Steelers here a lot, plus the 4 against the Baltimore Ravens. And here's why. So, if you guys tuned into my show last week, you saw for my dog of the week, I had the Houston Texans against the Steelers. I thought everyone was telling me, oh, the Steelers defensive line, oh, they're going to kill the banged up, injured Texans offensive line. And look what happened. They lost by 100 points. So, and it was all just about the spot for the Texans. The Steelers played Monday Night Football or Sunday night, whatever it was, against the Raiders. That was the week you guys were there. And then they have this week against Baltimore and playing the Texans your second straight week on the road with a rookie quarterback, a rookie coach, all that type of stuff. Not very much hype behind them. Projected to be one of the worst teams. You know, it's kind of hard to find the motivation in a sandwich spot like that when you got Baltimore on deck. And after you just played a historic rival like the Raiders in prime time. So that had all the makings of the Steelers falling flat on their face. But I love them this week, and here's why. I got plenty of trends for you guys. I don't care if it's going to be Trubisky or Kenny Pickett or, the water boy for all that I care in this game. There's just a lot of trends here, and I want the team catching the points. So Tomlin, week 5 or later, as an underdog, 71% coaching the Steelers. As a home dog, Mike Tomlin, 14-3-1 against the spread, 82%. Coming off a loss of a touchdown or more, which they got killed last week, 8-1 against the spread. The underdog in the Steelers and Ravens matchup, 18-2 against the spread since Mike Tomlin was there. Furthermore, when Tomlin faces off against John Harbaugh, the underdog is 22-5-3 against the spread. And as a home underdog, lastly, Mike Tomlin, 17-5-3, 77% against the spread. So for all those reasons, and with the Steelers clearly looking ahead to Baltimore, as evidenced by their extreme lackluster effort last week in Houston, I think the Steelers come out and they show up this week, and I think they might just beat the Ravens outright. Pickett or Trubisky or the Waterboy. Give me the Steelers.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I actually had this game also circled for all the trends you just mentioned, especially like you mentioned, 18-2 between the Ravens and Steelers since I don't know what year, but even since
2005, I think they said.
2015, since 2015, 15-1-1 against the spread is the dog in this matchup against the spread. Insane. And just Tomlin as a dog, rah-rah spot, off a big loss. I love everything you said here. I don't care who's playing quarterback, to be honest. And to be honest, looking at the Ravens game last week, Lamar did play great, but Dorian Thompson-Robinson pretty much handed that game to the Ravens on a platter. I mean, you guys probably saw that ridiculous fumble he had earlier on in the game, but they could not move the ball against the Ravens. And I think whether Pickett is hobbled or it's Trubisky, they'll be able to move the ball against the Ravens here. And they're still banged up in that secondary as well.
Yeah, I was flicking on that Steelers and Texans game back and forth because I have Najee Harris in fantasy and just praying that he had a long catch, which gave him over 10 points, but he's been atrocious. He needs to get in the end zone. But my point is that the Steelers look really awful. So I don't know that I can bet on that game, but I do have one more over. And I'm going to take the Dolphins and Giants over 48.5. And the Giants were really bad. They were really bad.
Might get off 49 by himself.
Yeah, they might. But Saquon Barkley should be back. And I think the Giants are really affected by his loss whenever he's not on the field because their backup running backs are just atrocious. And when they can't get the run going, I think they just lose total control of that offense. The Dolphins defense was lit up last week by, the Bills, and they have been lit up other weeks as well. So I think the Giants can find a little bit of success against that defense. And I don't think the Giants defense could slow down the Dolphins. I mean, the only team that really has slowed them down was the Bills last week.
And New England somewhat.
Yeah, a little bit.
The second half, they only scored 7.
Right. And that game was kind of in the bag at that point. But, I still think this total is a little bit too low. I know the Giants have been bad offensively, but I think they get Saquon back and they score some more points. So I'm going to take the over in that one as well.
Yeah, maybe some garbage time points for the Giants because I could see that one getting ugly.
Or that, yeah.
Little garbage backdoor insurance. I don't mind it. John, how about you? Anything else you like it in the NFL?
Yeah, there's just one more, and I promise you it's not biased whatsoever, but I'm sure are we gonna break down the primetime games, I'm assuming?
Oh yeah, we could do that, but go ahead if you have an opinion.
Okay. Yeah, well, I just want to jump right in. I like the Cowboys here with getting 3.5 on the road at San Francisco. Look, I'm not saying they're going to win the game outright. San Francisco has clearly looked like the best team in the NFL this year. There's no denying it. Defensively, offensively, Brock Purdy's been a lot better than I ever thought he would ever be, especially watching him at Iowa State in college. He was great. Yeah, he was great in college, but I just never thought he'd be like any good in the NFL. Regardless, look at who the 49ers have played. I mean, week 1, they beat up on a bad Steelers team, right? So, and we know how bad the Steelers have been since. Then they play, I believe, I forgot who they played week 2. They played the Rams, who we know the Rams aren't the Rams of old. They barely beat the Rams by 7 on the road. Then they played the Giants week 3 without Saquon Barkley, like Ryan just mentioned. Their offense just is not the same without him. They crushed the Giants. Then they played the Cardinals last week. So, yes, they've won pretty impressively so far this year, but they really haven't been tested, to be honest. And the Rams, you could argue, could have even won that game when they only won by 7, the Niners. So this is just a spot to me that I think the Cowboys' offensive line is finally healthy. We saw 2 of the starters return, Zach Martin and Tyler Biadasz returned last week, which they were missing 3 starting offensive linemen against the Cardinals, which I think really hurt them. I know the Cowboys are still struggling in the red zone. They have like one of the worst red zone scoring touchdown percentages in the NFL this year. But I think their defense is good enough to contain the 49ers offense. I know Christian McCaffrey is going to get his because the Cowboys have been pretty vulnerable against the run. But I think these pass rushers should have a decent day against this Niners offensive line. And I want to see some teams pressure Brock Purdy a little bit. He's had all day to throw in all these matchups. He's finally going to get tested against this Dallas pass rush. And I just think the Dallas offense is good enough to hang in there. As long as Dak doesn't fall on his face like the NFC divisional round last year, I think the Cowboys will hang in late in this game and hopefully pull out a win. But I think 3.5 is too many points given the circumstances.
All right. I'll give out one more before we do prime time. Went a little bit in reverse order this week, but that's okay. This one is pretty gross too, but I tweeted it out on, I think, Monday. Let me see if the line moved at all. No, which is weird. But anyway, it's the Bengals -3 at the Cardinals. I'm sorry, it's disgusting, but it just has to be done. And here's why. So I understand things have changed. Joe Burrow is obviously not 100%. And even if you think that's a load of shit, you could clearly see just by the way Zach Taylor's calling the game. They're getting the ball out of Burrow's hands. That's why his average depth of target is like 3 inches, because they don't trust the offensive line, and they definitely don't want to risk him getting even more hurt. So everything's quick so he can't get hit. But anyway, long story short, if this game's being played like 2 weeks ago before, or week 1 or week 2, whatever, I mean, the look ahead line in this game was Bengals -8. And I know they've been terrible on offense. Their defense hasn't even been that great. But I'm sorry. If this team could not beat the Cardinals, who, in my opinion, are still bottom of the barrel, you could kind of interchange the bottom 5 teams depending on, what your criteria is for who's the shittiest. But at the end of the day, if this Cincinnati team, this is pretty much their season right here. If they cannot beat the Cardinals by 3 points with Joe Burrow injured and other things going on with them, I mean, that's it. That's it. They should shut down Joe Burrow, in my opinion, and pack it in and see what they could get in draft and free agency and come back for next year, because this has to be it. Backs against the wall. You're playing a terrible team, and you're telling me I get 5 points better of line value? I mean, I think the Cardinals are unplayable here at 3. I mean, you had several weeks. You had before the Bengals got slaughtered last week against the Titans. I mean, you can't play the Cardinals here catching a field goal. Like, I'm sorry, it's just unplayable. If you like the Cardinals, you just have to pass. So, like I said, there's just a lot of reasons here, and most of them are speculative, but there's no way in hell you could convince me that the Bengals at a field goal, which it's widely available, I just looked right now, are not the side here. So give me the Bengals. I don't care how bad they've looked. There's no way in hell that you could convince me the Cardinals +3 is a good bet, regardless of outcome. There's just no way you could convince me. So give me the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to play a side in this game, but I would agree. I would definitely lean Cincinnati here. I would even argue if you play Jake Browning over Joe Burrow, give him a week to rest. I think even Jake Browning should be able to beat the Cardinals in this spot. Like you said, backs against the wall. They have nothing to lose. This is pretty much their season. If they're not going to beat the Cardinals, they should just shut Joe Burrow down. So I think this is definitely a good spot. And like you said, that look ahead line is kind of crazy when you think about it, that it was -8. How long ago was that? Like a week ago?
Yeah, like before the Titans game, I think. 7,
Yeah.
7.5, 8, some in that vicinity. It was way more than 3, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're gonna, looking at this whole card, if you're gonna bet the Cardinals here, you should definitely look elsewhere. I have no reason to back them here. As bad as the Bengals have looked, definitely agree with your side. I just can't trust Joe Burrow right now. As good as he is and how wonderful he is, but I don't know how healthy he is. He's probably underselling the whole injury. And like I said, even with Jake Browning, I think the Bengals should be able to pull this out.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. This is just kind of, as they say, last chance to dance really here for Bengals and Joe Burrow's season alone. Because like I said, if they can't beat the Cardinals by a field goal, I mean, you got a lot of issues. So we're going to go with Cincinnati here, and which is the literal lowest of buy low spots you could possibly think of. The team that was projected to win 3.5 games this year, I think, was their over under 4 at some spots, I think. But and a team that had top 5-ish odds for the Super Bowl, and now they're only laying a field goal. I know circumstances have changed, but still, when we talk about buy low spots, this is literally the bottom of the barrel buy low spot. So I'm going to trust that Cincinnati shows us a little something more this week. But with that, we'll get into our primetime games real quick here. Thursday night, we got the shitter of all shitters, the Commanders and the Bears. I'm not going to say too much about this game just because I don't know. I mean, if you have an opinion in this game, that's great. But the Commanders, yeah, they're 2-2, and the Bears haven't won since the Vietnam War. But laying a touchdown with the Commanders is just not something I'm interested in. You saw week 1 against the Cardinals. I think I said on this show, like, yeah, the Cardinals are projected to be terrible. Commanders are projected to be whatever. But who the hell is Sam Howell to be laying a touchdown to anyone? I know they had like a spirited effort against the Eagles, but it's a division game, and sometimes you just got to throw those out in your handicap. Like, I just don't understand. I don't care who the Commanders are playing. You will never, ever, ever catch me laying a touchdown with Sam Howell. It's just not possible. So this is just the easiest stay away on the board for me. If anything, it would be Bears, but I'm not betting it.
Yeah, I think we could be quick with this one since it's such a crappy game. But the only thing I have to say about it is I would take Justin Fields rushing total over 46.5. He really hasn't been running too much. But in a game that they're going to be, in the mix, maybe a close game, he finds some rushing lanes if the pressure's there and he's got to get out of it. So I think he's going to have kind of like a bounce back game rushing the ball. So that's the only thing I would play.
I would love that for my fantasy team. So come on, Mr. Fields. John, how about you? Anything in the shit bowl of the week?
Yeah, just real quick. I'm not taking a side in this game, but pretty much it's Bears or nothing. I agree with you. I can't lay a touchdown or even 6 with Sam Howell here. I know he looked good last week, but the Bears, they're 0-4. They're going to be desperate. They're going to be pulling out all the stops. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a lot of trick plays in this game. Eberflus is pretty much about to get fired, so I'm sure he's going to pull out a desperate effort here from his team, but I just can't trust the Bears here either. So I think it's Bears or nothing.
Yeah, and for the love of God, please let Justin Fields run because it's been a major detriment besides last week to my fantasy team. So Eberflus, if you're listening, let Justin Fields run the damn ball, please, for the love of God. Sunday night, John just talked about it. He was on the Cowboys. Yeah, at 3.5, I don't have much of an opinion. If it was 3 or lower, I would look to the 49ers, actually, but there's not a lot to like in this game. I mean, you could lay the -800 with McCaffrey. I'm joking, obviously, to score a touchdown, considering he's scored one, like, I think every game he's been a Niner.
13 straight games.
-1 game. So I have one friend, Andy Lang, who works for Wager Talk, frequent guest of the show. So Andy, shout out to you. It was like -200 a couple weeks ago. And it was like, it's crazy for a touchdown, but if it hits every week, like, who cares about the juice? And of course, I think he scored like 2 or 3 that game. But anyway, yeah,
my fantasy team. A lot of people picked him, passed on him with the first pick, but I took him.
Yeah, he's been healthy and he's been playing great. I don't know. I'm just glad we don't have like a shit primetime game. That's really my only thoughts. Ryan, do you have anything? Because I don't think I'm getting there unless this line moves one way or another.
Yeah, I don't think I'll really be betting much. Maybe the under. I obviously hate both of these teams. These are probably
literally his least 2 favorite teams.
I did not think Brock Purdy would be this good so far, but you're right, John. They really haven't played anyone. I still don't believe in Brock Purdy. The Eagles are somehow the only team to beat Brock Purdy, and he was obviously knocked out of the game. But I don't know. I don't believe in him. And I think their defense is good, but I don't know. People talk about it sometimes like it's the 85 Bears. So I don't know. I'm just waiting.
Ryan's probably not the person to ask about these 2 teams.
Yeah, I'm biased on this subject.
There's a nuclear bomb on the field that they're both wiped off the face of the earth.
It's going to be one of 3 teams coming out of the NFC, and it's going to be probably the Eagles, Cowboys, or 49ers.
You would think, with the maybe rare occasion with the Lions. But yeah, pretty much. Those seem like the 3 best at the moment. But anyway, Monday night, this is whatever game. Packers, I think, -1 roughly at the Raiders. I don't know. The Raiders got a lot of problems here. There's Mark Davis or whatever his name is. I forget. Al Davis's son. He's like 100 years old himself now too. He's yelling at fans, telling them, use your head, when they're all chanting fire McDaniels and all this crap. Devontae Adams, there's talk he's on the block. They had Aiden O'Connell out there last week. Like, Jesus, it's just a dumpster fire in Vegas right now. And Green Bay, I bet on them. That was like one of the only things I did wrong last week in the NFL, and they just looked terrible. I thought they were going to show up for a team that ended their season, and they did the furthest thing from show up. So I want nothing to do with this game. You're trying to get me to bet on a team that looks like they could be one win away from fire sale with the coaches, the players, everything, and a Green Bay team that really should have been lacking zero motivation whatsoever. Like I said, now has to go to Vegas. I mean, yeah, I don't have much of an opinion. If either team somehow flips to like 1.5, 2-point dog, I would probably consider a teaser, just because I feel like this game could be close. But yeah, I guess if you put a gun to my head, I would say Green Bay wins, but not with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I'm not super interested in this either. I'd have to take Green Bay if I really am interested in playing something that night. But usually what I do when I'm not into like the spread or the total is I go with a player prop. So I really didn't look into it yet, so I don't know, but I'm not really interested on a side or total in this one.
Yeah. How about
if
you,
I was
John?
going to take something, I'd probably lean over. I see 45 out there right now. I mean, let's face it, the Raiders' defense has been atrocious. I mean, at times their pass rushes look good, but their secondary has been absolutely decimated. And obviously, we heard about the Chandler Jones news.
Oh, yeah, that too, when I was talking about dumpster fire. Add that to the list.
Yeah. So obviously, they don't have him anymore. So that's a big hit to their defensive line as well. Despite the Chargers kind of let their foot off the gas after Justin Herbert hurt his hand last week. So I think they could have easily put up a couple more touchdowns if he was healthy. I think with 10 days to prep here, Green Bay, I think they'll be able to come up with a good game plan to attack this Raiders defense. I think they'll put up a fair share of points. And whether or not Aiden O'Connell suits back up or Jimmy G is back from his injury, I think the Raiders will be able to move the ball also against this Packers team, who looked bad against the Lions. The Lions were able to do whatever they wanted last week. Montgomery had a big game. Jared Goff had a big game. So I don't really see that changing. I don't think this is like the Packers defense of a couple of years ago. So if I had to play something here, I'd definitely take the over 45.
All right. And real quick, we'll do our dogs of the week before we get to best bets. But real quick, I already talked about it. Dog of 3 or more. The only one that really stood out to me was the Pittsburgh Steelers here. They're like 4-point underdogs, I think, now. So whatever they are on the money line, just give me them for my dog of the week. I'm not going to rehash it, but yeah, give me the Steelers.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. I'm going to go with the Jags against the Bills in London. They're staying out there. Bills just had a big win. Feel like everyone's going to feel like, the Bills are back. But, after that big win, now having to travel overseas, Jacksonville's done it a million times. They're already out there. I don't love this game, but I don't love any of the underdogs. So I'll take a shot on them. And don't forget, I think it was last year, the Jags really stifled Josh Allen. It was Josh Allen from Jacksonville who had a big game against.
Yeah, I remember. Was that last year or was that 2 years ago?
Maybe it was.
That was 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I thought so.
That was the ugliest game. Was 9-6 or something like that?
Yeah, it was really ugly, crappy game.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think it's worth a shot. They're like plus 195 on the money line, so.
Yeah, I don't hate that. John, how about you? Favorite underdog this week?
Yeah, it would probably be the Steelers. But since you took that for the sake of being different. I'll stick with the Cowboys plus 3.5. I don't like taking my favorite team in any
It's okay. I did it with the Panthers one week. It was so bad.
Yeah, so I already have enough emotional investment in this because it's a huge game, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think 3.5 points is a joke, but I like the money line as well. And just as a bonus pick, I know we're doing 3 or more, but I'll real briefly talk about the Colts plus 1.5. I like them on the money line. They're home against the Titans. Titans off a win. Colts off a tough loss, but they did look good in the second half against the Rams. They came back from 23 down in the second half. Anthony Richardson has looked really good when he's played. I know he missed time with his concussion, but when he's been on the field, he's looked really impressive. And just for any casual bettor out there, all advice I can give to you if you're betting the NFL is bet Mike Vrabel as an underdog and fade him as a favorite. I mean, as a home away favorite, his against the spread numbers are atrocious. So I just think this is a good spot for the Colts here, just as a little bonus pick. I know it's under 3, but
did that line flip? Because the Colts were small favorites when I haven't bet any NFL since I think Monday, and we're at the time of recording if our audience isn't watching. Same day, the Colts were like 1.5 point favorites, but I guess maybe it
flipped 102 on the money line.
Okay.
Yeah, they must have recently flipped today.
You're gonna hear more about that game from me in the best bet segment.
Oh wow. Okay.
I got
but yeah, with that, we'll be right back, guys, and we'll get you our show best bets for the week. You have been listening to Season 3 of the Rudy G Bets Inside the Lines podcast. We'll be right back after this with our show best bets. All right, guys, and we are back with our show best bets. Ryan, we'll start out with you. Thanks for sending in last week, like we mentioned at the top of the show, the Jaguars in London -3. What do you got for this week?
Yeah, it was good to hit that one last week. This week I have 2, one in college. I'll start with that. I'm going to take UCLA -3.5 against Washington State at home. So last week, UCLA had a disappointing loss to Utah, but it was a very low-scoring game. They threw a pick 6. And Washington State's been impressive, but they're kind of lucky to be 4-0. You know, they had a bad game against Wisconsin where they turned the ball over. Wisconsin turned the ball over 4 times, and Washington State only won that game by, I think, 9 points. So they have been good, but nobody's betting on UCLA as a favorite here. It's another reason why I like them. It's kind of been a theme on this show. I don't know as much about college, so I kind of like to read the lines a little bit. And it's worked out for me with the college picks I've given out on this show. But this is one where the line doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it's going up. I think it was at a field goal. Now it's 3.5. So give me UCLA -3.5. And the NFL, talked about it over the break. John talked about it right before the break. Colts +102 on the money line. They started off last week. They were down 23-0 against the Rams. They brought it all the way back and unfortunately lost in overtime. Although I say unfortunately, I did have the Rams. So I was happy about it. But yeah, Anthony Richardson has been really good. And the Titans defense, the pass defense is atrocious. Joe Burrow is really the only quarterback that hasn't had success against this Titans pass defense. And obviously he's dealing with an injury. Don't be fooled by that 27-3 win. The Titans were outscored 27-3 the week before against the Browns. John mentioned how Mike Vrabel, as a favorite on the road is terrible against the spread. I don't have the numbers in front of me or anything, but really for a lot of reasons, I like the Colts. They're at home. The line is a little bit weird to me, but yeah, taking Colts plus 102 money line.
All right, Ryan, going with UCLA and the Colts this week. John, how about you?
Okay, so I have a couple of college best bets here. I'll start number one with it's actually Saturday at 4:00. We have USF and UAB. I'm going over 67.5. I believe it's ticked up to 68.5. I still like it there. I would probably play it up to 70. Look, both of these teams, if I'm sure many casual bettors don't really know anything about these teams, but just to give you a little insight, both of these teams' defenses are atrocious. More specifically, UAB's defense against the run is 131st against the run. They're 130th in line yards. They're 103rd in pass success rate. That's out of 150 FBS teams. So obviously, very not good. Really, really not good. I can't stand Trent Dilfer. I think the guy is an absolute clown. I'm sure everybody saw that clip last week of him flipping out on the sideline like a child. But the guy is a bona fide loser. He's the typical guy you just see at the Applebee's open bar happy hour, sipping on his $3 margarita, telling his glory boy stories. I mean, of his 12 touchdown, 11 interception, touchdown INT ratio when he won the Super Bowl with the Ravens. But anyway, enough bashing about him. But this UAB offense, I will say, is really impressive. I thought they were going to take a huge step back, and I'm not the biggest fan of Jacob Zeno, but he's proven me wrong this year. I mean, week after week, this UAB offense finds success. They're top 40 in running and passing. They're 53rd in finishing drives, which means anytime they pass the 50-yard line, they're more likely than not coming out with points. And again, this USF defense is awful. I mean, yeah, they look great against Alabama, but that was against Ty Buckner and Ty Simpson in the pouring rain. So I wouldn't take anything away from that game. And I just think this game is primed for points. Like I said, I would play this up to 70. And to go into my second bet, it's another college game, and I'm sure a lot of eyeballs will be on this one. I'm going to take Arizona State here, +4, at home against Colorado. I'm going to fade Deion. I liked Colorado last week. I thought 21.5 was a lot of points against a USC team that cannot stop anybody, it seems like. But this week, I just think this is a huge flat spot for Colorado. They were all pumped up at home last week against a big-time Pac-12 opponent against USC last week. Yeah, they fought hard. They really came on in the second half. The defense made some good adjustments, but I still think their defense is bad. I don't care who they're playing. They're not going to make many stops. They nearly lost to Colorado State as 21-point favorites a couple weeks ago at home. So I know Arizona State's 1-4, but they did play Cal tough last week, and I know a lot of people were down on Cal going into the year, but they've played really quality football this year. And they made it a game against USC a couple weeks ago. I believe they were only down 7 in the second half against USC on the road. So this team has had a lot of fight, and I just think this is a classic flat spot for Colorado after getting so pumped up for a home game last week. And I just think this is a huge overreaction by the market. And I believe this is the first time Colorado is a road favorite by 3 or more in over 5 years, which is kind of crazy to say. It just goes to show you how far the program's already gone under Deion. But yeah, this is a huge overreaction of the market. Colorado still can't run the ball. They can't defend. And Arizona State's actually one of the best teams in the country against the pass. I believe they're 20th in the all of FBS stopping the pass. And that's all Colorado does. So I just think this is a great spot for Arizona State. I don't see them. I could see their offense struggling a little bit, but considering how bad Colorado's defense is, I think they'll be able to put up some points and cover this number.
So I have 2 best bets for you guys, one college, one NFL, typically as I do when there's no big UFC, and there really hasn't been in a while. Well, we'll get back to that pretty soon, though, October 21st. Those have been money just for the last 3 years on this show, my UFC best bets. But we're going to go to the game John just talked about, and we're going to go with the Arizona State Sun Devils +4.5. I like this one a lot, man. Last week, I successfully just avoided that game altogether. And I talked about it because Dave who was just me and him last week. He grew up as a big USC fan. His dad and his grandfather. I think his grandfather actually went there or something. I'd have to fact check with him after the show. But anyway, long story short, I didn't want to lay the number just because it was the same as Oregon. Oregon has a better defense than USC. And now USC was going on the road with, like, I think it was what they were 1 more point favorites than Oregon was. So, and also they got embarrassed. I figured they'd have a little more fight. And in the first half, it didn't look like they had much, but they kind of found their way. Now they're playing Arizona State, 2 straight losses. I mean, the Colorado hype is kind of all but done. But here, you only have to get them to win by 5 points. And I think everyone and their mother is going to be all about it because they showed life against USC, right? They made a nice, valiant effort there, even though Caleb Williams threw for 9,000 yards and 90 touchdowns last week. USC's defense isn't that good. We've known this. Every team that Lincoln Riley coaches has a shit defense. Like I talked about earlier, the first thing about Oklahoma and now having Brett Venables. But this is a good spot here, I think, for Arizona State as well. As John said, Colorado can't even run the football. They're one of the worst Power 5 run teams, and that's where Arizona State's defense is at its weakest. Their run defense isn't that great. But when you're only average like 50, 60 yards a game running, and all they do is have Shadur Sanders run around and try to chuck it to different guys on the outside, I think Arizona State's going to be fine here. And it wouldn't even shock me to see them win outright and just completely sink the Colorado hype. So give me Arizona State I'm fine with anything over a field goal. You could still get 4.5s now, but I think they're going to win this game outright probably too. So one that I think is going to be close, could come down to the wire. It's good to have a little more than a field goal in your back pocket. So give me the Sun Devils too. And then my NFL best bet, this one, there was a lot in contention. The Steelers, I wanted to use them, but they were really a good dog of the week, in my opinion. There were some others that I talked about. I thought about the Eagles. But this week, we're going with the Miami Dolphins in the first half, -6.5. Before the show, it was still 6.5 everywhere. So I'm pretty sure that should be available by the time you guys are seeing this. And here's why. There's been no worse team than the New York Giants in the first half this year. I mean, I think they've scored 18 points in the first half so far this year. And if you count that miracle comeback against Arizona, what has this team done? I mean, absolutely nothing. Miami, I was on the Bills last week. I loved the Bills. They were one of my big plays last week. And Miami got steamrolled. Now they get to come back home. And I'm sure they're definitely pissed off about getting spanked by Buffalo. Who better to do that against than the New York Giants, who have been the NFL's worst first half team this year? So I think Miami gets it rolling early and often and takes care of business and puts this one away in the first half. So give me the Dolphins here, -6.5. I absolutely love this bet in the first half against the Giants.
Yeah, I can't fault you there, Rue. I guess now to just close out the show, I'd like to, thank John for coming on. He writes for the Action Network, as I think alluded to earlier in the show. He does a lot of college articles, so the Action Network is something that I've always looked at even before John started writing. It's a great app to check out for anyone that bets, but. Yeah, check out his articles. I'm sure he'll have some up this week. They've been doing pretty well. I read them and I tail some of them sometimes. So thanks for coming on, John. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Rudy, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Ryan kind of stole my thunder there, but sure, no problem, Ryan.
Just a quick plug. Yes, I'll have some articles up at the Action Network this week, specifically USF, UAB. I'll have that whole breakdown why I like the over. I'm also writing up Boston College Army. So if you guys, a lot of ugly games this week on my end. I'll be also writing up Toledo and UMass, even lower level quality of football there. Yeah. And I believe I'm also going to be writing up UConn and Rice, which just a sneak preview. I do like Rice because UConn has been one of the worst FBS teams so far this year. But yeah, thanks a lot for having me on, guys. It's been great.
Yeah, you guys can follow John on Twitter at John John Feltman FELTMANLI. Yeah. So again, like Ryan said, it was awesome to have you on, man. We'll definitely be getting you on again in the near future. And just good luck with your plays this week. And we were all in agreement on a lot of the plays, so hopefully that works out, and we don't have to come back and say how bad we suck. But things have been pretty good. I was saying last week on the show with Dave how good college was going, and NFL was a little bit up and down, and then of course college was my worst week, and NFL was my best one. So who the hell knows? You never know in this business. I just try to give out the best info we can here, and it's awesome to get John on and add him to the stable of the guests. Next week, in all likelihood, I should be adding another new guest, so stay tuned for that. Probably going to go meet up with him in Boston next week, so that should be fun to give you guys a sneak preview. You could see that in action. So with that, guys, Rudy, Ryan, and John sign off for the week ahead. Enjoy. Nice weekend of football. And if you're like me in UFC, even though it's not a great card, it's something. And take care, guys. We'll see you next time.